Hello and welcome to this edition of the Resilient Enterprise Virtual Power Room series. This series brings together business leaders to discuss current challenges and how technology solutions can help improve customer experience and build a resilient business in the face of the adverse events in the future. Today's edition is on connected cognitive enterprise, a key to build supply chain resiliency, where we will explore how organizations have had to rethink their global supply chain models, assess opportunities for continued growth, and create strategies for a new normal. I'm Avnish Singh, and I will be your moderator for today's roundtable. Let me begin by quickly outlining the agenda for today. We will start with a keynote session on building multi-enterprise value networks for growth in global markets, which will be followed by a panel on why being a cognitive connected enterprise is critical to build supply chain resiliency. Our panel members will then be responding to any questions that you may have. Please feel free to post your questions and we will take them up at the end of the session. I now invite Praveen Kombial, who is the Global Product Head for Business Applications at EdgeVerve, to start today's session with his keynote. Praveen?
Thanks, Avnish. Just can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Lovely, thank you. I'm just going to bring up a few slides and all right, and can you just confirm you can see the slide as well?
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you so much. So again, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you might be. We've got quite the global audience from our side on the group and the panel as well, and I'm sure the audience is pretty global on the whole. So we're going to talk about value networks and multi-enterprise value networks at that, with the key word being really about driving growth in global markets. It's really over the last year that hasn't the world come to appreciate the supply chain, the whole supply chain ecosystem so much better, right? As a role, I'm just going to try and hide this for you. Yes. Lovely. And we've really come to appreciate this function even more than probably ever before. And there's some mega trends to talk about. This whole shift to online consumer buying behavior is almost irreversible now. And some studies estimate that almost 60% of the people have changed behaviors. Product explosions continue. And actually, in some sense, the online ecosystem allows people to create markets and niche markets at that, and is just aiding the explosion even more. Our retail mix seems to be changing. You're probably seeing a lot of closures, but you're also seeing some different kind of openings in DCs and so on and so forth. Interestingly, consumer subscription demand seems to have grown. Again, quite a change and quite a trend. Of course, these percentages are on small base, but again, we seem to be seeing a buying behavior that's changing. And that's something that has been aspirational for a lot of brands for many years. And of course, many of these have led to classic old challenges of supply chain execution, and the out of stock rates have only slightly actually crept up. Why has that got accentuated? And to our mind, it's that over the last decade, the supply chain expanded its footprint to design anywhere, build anywhere, sell anywhere. And look at what it has become, right? You're now outsourced globally. You've added so many more suppliers and channels getting added with the demand shifting in the way it's being delivered. While all this has opened up opportunities, it's essentially also added some volatility, complexity, uncertainty, the classic VUCA. And what that also means is that different things for different personas in the entire supply chain execution ecosystem or planning ecosystem, right? So for example, so much more in channel development means that you got to estimate and forecast demand much more closer to those ecosystems, closer to your channels, closer to your partners. The geography spread of the suppliers, both domestic and international, has added more volatility and challenges of governance. You have expanded as much, and data interoperability in how people communicate the language of business has stretched. And organizations have tried to bring their internal ecosystems together and planning ecosystems together, but that's not enough because you're much outside the enterprise. And so many more live systems to connect to, right? Across your partners, across your entire ecosystem. And just monitoring all of that and making sense of that and trying to react to events has just accentuated the need for resilience. And this kind of coupled with the whole, if you think of it, the layers of product introduction, demand channels, and so on and so forth, in some sense, the complexity has only rapidly increased and made the job even more difficult, right? And a lot of this, there's been trade-offs in this move to a globalization or a global environment of your supply chain. Obviously, lead times have increased. In some sense, cost of inventory has gone up because you're looking for safety stocks now, particularly coming out of this environment, coming out of this event. Cost to serve might have gone up, and you might have given up some for agility in the interest of building out some resiliency and so on and so forth. So almost all of these are being revisited today. We believe that the industry is evolving to create supply chain ecosystems across multiple enterprises. And that's what's going to drive insights, business process execution, and really transformation of the next order. All that we could have squeezed from doing so within the enterprise was probably done with the last efforts of trying to drive an integrated business planning environment. To our minds, the next stage of evolution has to come about by bringing an ecosystem together. And what constitutes this ecosystem? It's, of course, the company and its manufacturing, its warehouses, its suppliers, its distributors, its retailers, its co-packers, its 3PL partners. All of these kind of go towards creating an ecosystem. And when you track everything from understanding your demand to fulfillments to execution to supplier to resilience, you're essentially talking about trying to influence different metrics across this entire ecosystem. And that is the next stage of how you can evolve. A lot of consulting organizations and futurists, if you look at their maturity curves, almost all of them call that out as kind of the nirvana, right? The last point of maturity. But we believe that this is here and now, and enterprises are already driving this transformation. And we want to talk through some of that today, but just to reel off a couple of examples is that where, we know this confectioner in the Europe who's working to bring its entire warehouses and co-packer ecosystem into one single common data platform, common digital platform, with the idea to drive an inventory hub and inventory optimization. But that's just the start point. They believe that this is the base and foundation that's needed to drive a direct-to-consumer initiative. We know an OEM manufacturer in the US who's trying to, who has a fairly good demand capability, demand sensing coming in from their manufacturers, but they're trying to pass that on to their suppliers to incentivize them to get more visibility of the supplier, and the supplier, et cetera, right? We know another apparel manufacturer who's working very hard to try and do order orchestration and fulfillment across its partners in a bi-directional way. So there are many such examples of how enterprises are driving this transformation, and it's not so much something that you talk about way into the future. So how does one go about it, and what does the journey look like? And this is where it gets slightly complex. We believe that the journey has to start with, first of all, creating that ecosystem, the integration, with the intent of bringing data together. Data is going to be the heart, right? So driving low latency, high granularity data by creating an integrated ecosystem, not of great complexity in how you create through systems of record or kind of complex EDI arrangements, but really through simpler means, because not all your partners are going to have the same technology maturity as you might have today, right? So the journey starts with integration. The journey starts with having the ability to be interoperable, which means that I need to understand the data as it comes in. I need to be able to translate it to my product masters, my location masters, and be able to make sense of that information. I need to be able to collate it and hold it in a way that I can drive insights and develop a better information from that, right? So this is kind of the start point for us, which is about integration and interoperability. Then the next step is really about driving collaboration. You want to know your suppliers better. You want to know your demand points better. You want to know your forecasts better. You want to know, and so much more that can be done with this partner ecosystem in collaborating on orders, fulfillments, forecasts, returns, risks, mitigations, etc. Right? So there's this whole multi-enterprise collaboration, which is really the next step. And finally, the step is about orchestration. You don't want to do this everything in a kind of a batch mode or event based. What you really want to get to is having an ability to do so in an automated way and an event-driven way, where certain outliers into your ecosystem can automatically be triggered for automated actions, whether that's driving a spike in demand somewhere that you're changing your inventory replenishment plans and getting somebody to oversee it. All of those come by with an ability to drive orchestration, right? And so these, to our minds, is what kind of the journey tends to look like. And really what we at EdgeVerve and with our product ecosystem of TradeEdge, what we're trying to do is that we're trying to really bring this mission to life. We started by creating a demand network, and we've been at this for about a decade. And we do that really well over the year. Over the last decade, we've set up a demand network across about 130 countries, millions of touch points of merchants. And we're bringing very, very low latency, high granularity information to brands about what they sold or what they hold at a SKU level, store level today. And so that's where we started. But we also then started building the ecosystem to create not just a demand view, but also to bring that entire supply chain ecosystem together onto one common platform. The base capabilities of the platform are about synchronizing, connecting your ecosystem, bringing partners together, networking, harmonizing data. And then once you do that, there's so much that you could deliver from a use case perspective, right? I mean, driving visibility, traceability, fulfillment, marketing use cases, supply chain optimization, inventory use cases. There's a lot that you could do there. And those can all be offered on top of the platform. And our design tenets of that is data at the heart of the network, and make the acquisition modes of the data simpler to use to drive adoption. Obviously, to be able to do it at global scale, just to provide about $100 billion of sales and inventory visibility, we create terabytes of data across all these merchants on a daily basis, right? So we're really talking about scale here. It's also about embedded intelligence, not artificial intelligence for artificial intelligence sake, but really to use insights and drive purposeful orchestration using AI and graph technology to be able to do that. And of course, creating unique experience layers that are not just a standard way of delivering, but every persona, every individual, every organization on the network would look at it as they want to see it. And of course, there's tons of opportunities of value delivery, just partner network visibility, 60 to 70% improvement of your sell-through inventory positions is a significant uplift from where you might be today. Driving out of stock reductions, improving case fill rates, improving procurement opportunities. There are lots of value unlocking opportunities out there, right? So in summary, our proposition and submission is that the uplift of supply chain transformation in our next stage is really about driving and creating a multi-enterprise ecosystem together. The complexity of that lies in bringing the data ecosystem together first, and then being able to leverage that with emerging technologies to drive better insights, but not just stop there, having the ability to bidirectionally orchestrate processes across your enterprise, your planning ecosystems to your partner ecosystems. That is where the full value of what we can extract with the network concept is the future of the supply chain transformation agenda. We thought we wanted to share some of this. There are many more examples to talk about, and we'll do some of that when we chat around the panel questions, but that's what I wanted to share with you. Avnish, back to you.
Thank you, Praveen. That was very insightful, and thanks for sharing all that information of work you're doing at EdgeVerve and TradeEdge. We will now proceed to the panel discussion. The topic of discussion is why being a cognitive connected enterprise is critical to build supply chain resiliency. Our panel members are Sadir Sheikh, is a Senior Manager, Business Intelligence and Analytics at Adidas. Praveen Kombial, who you just heard, he is Global Product Head for Business Applications at EdgeVerve. And Sanjay Sehgal, who leads the strategic partnerships at Infosys for CPG and retail customers. Welcome, Praveen, Sanjay, and Sadir. Sadir, if I may please ask you to switch on the camera. Thank you. And for the audience, please post your questions in the chat window, and we will take them up at the end of the session today. So, panel members, thank you for joining and welcome again. So, Sadir, why don't I start with you, if that's okay? I know you do a lot of work around bringing in the data and leading the whole business intelligence and providing that back to the business stakeholders who are using this then further in the markets. So what challenges does your organization face on a daily basis with respect to supply chain visibility?
Well, Praveen, so the major aspect, as we all know, the cycle of production to delivery involves basically multiple processes here. And the first and the foremost among them is the necessity to plan and forecast the demand. Yeah. And in the planning process and forecasting process, again, anticipating and planning for short-term changes is one of the biggest challenges of many industries. And this is indeed, also one of the key challenges. So traditionally, forecasting models were based on time series techniques that created basically a forecast based on, prior sales history. Yeah. However, where, past sales are sufficient for predicting the future forecast, which can go all the way up until mid or long-term planning horizons. Yeah, they've shown to be very less accurate for short-term planning. Yeah, so short-term planning, basically what we really need in order to do a short-term planning is a methodology and a technology for improving basically near future forecasts. Yeah, this is where majority of companies really struggle a lot, and this is one of our biggest problems as well. And to overcome this, we basically had to move, from something called as demand planning to demand sensing. Yeah, which uses basically detailed short-term demand data. Yeah, and which basically means that we really need to be able to capture sales at a micro level, sales and inventory at a micro level for our stores, whether it be online, whether it be physical. Yeah, in order to do this demand sensing. Because that is the key here. We really need to be in the market when we needed to be. Yeah. So short-term sensing of demand is the most essential aspect, and also the most difficult aspect. So the basic premises here is that if you look at demand sensing, so we all know that the past is the best predictor of future. It follows that the very recent past is basically the best predictor of very near future. So that is basically the key challenge that we have, and that is where I think where we are putting all our efforts to ensure that we really plan well in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadir. And Sadir, you went towards another point, which is actually my next question as well. These days, there's the data is available at granular sales and inventory level, and even at a store SKU level across the tiers. So what is possible when you're leveraging such data in real time, and what kind of insights are you really trying to bring and provide back to your business?
Definitely. Well, I would call the four important aspects that we actually look at when we are looking at data across, at such a granular level, which is at SKU and, looking at sales and inventory. The key aspects that we look at, it allows us to sense the demand and cater to the consumer needs, but also provides us with an opportunity to look at products which are not really performing well. Yeah. The second important aspect is basically ensure that our key products are never out of stock. So this is always a struggle to ensure that our top stores basically do have the right products in place. Yeah. Look at opportunities across tiers to move stock where it is needed. Absolutely essential. I mean, with this time where the fluctuation happens, there's a lot of disruption in terms of ordering. People, are going towards the online business. We really need to find opportunities how we can, look at, inventory across tiers. Yeah. The fourth important aspect is to create an early signal to factory for additional demands. So these are the key important things which we really are able to do as we have this data in hand.
Well, thank you, Sadiq. And Sanjay, you work across many customers in your role at Infosys, and you're providing the advice from technology side. What do you see, if I was to bring that to you, what do you see the possibilities out there today with the kind of granular data which is available in real time?
Perfect, Avnish. I will build on what Sadir was saying. I almost thought that he was reading my minds over the internet. When you say granular sales and inventory data, what are we really meaning? In simple English, that is the signal of consumer offtake and the inventory with my retail partner as a CPG company. This is truly the most powerful insight. And for years, we have talked about consumer-driven supply network, demand-driven supply network. Today, that information is available. Let me share with you some of the benefits that we have delivered to our clients. And it will almost 100% resonate with the point Sadir was making. Very first thing, by leveraging consumer offtake and my customer's inventory, rather than just my shipments, nothing against shipments, but shipments have order cuts, shipments have substitutions, and internal inventory into the replenishment planning systems. The category we piloted, it had a 2% global growth. And then the client went live across the globe, all categories. So first thing is tighten up the plans by sensing where should I be, where can a customer run out of stocks and fulfill that. The second is, Sajid mentioned about demand sensing. We have used the real consumer offtake signal along with pricing, weather, and a few other factors into the demand sensing system, and the forecasting accuracy improved by 20%. So you can forecast better, like very recent demand is history is very recent predictor of the near future. The third, I think most of the customers today say, please give me an early visibility to a demand spike or a supply shock. We all know in US, New York was the first state where pandemic broke out and paper product category was really in short supply. With our strategic partner, by plotting the demand spike, sensing inventory reductions, so the two were saying something has happened with the COVID map. In New York State, we were able to bring the stock out down to just 2 days for a client. What was the competitive advantage they garnered out of it? In February, their market share was approximately 19%. By May, they were at 24%. So they not only fulfilled demand by sensing it and responding better than their competition, they gained market share. Similarly, we are using this information to predict out of stocks or phantom inventory. So one of our leading clients, they have gone live with two customers, which is Target and Kroger, which is about $10 billion worth of business. In the very first year, avoidance is $65 million. So that's straight revenue. And same applies whether you are doing a promotion or if you are going towards a new product introduction. In new product introduction, I think everybody forecasts the gross demand very well. But when you come to geographic clusters across SKUs and variants, the fluctuations of consumer response can be different. This helps you sense that. So these are some of the real benefits that I have seen our clients get and be excited with. Back to you, Abhish.
No, thank you, Sanjay. And Sanjay, when you were talking about it, I was going back to a conversation which me, Praveen, and Sadir were having about the complexity which exists out today, right? The data, which is there. 80% of data today is sitting outside of the walls of an enterprise, and then there is this org view versus the heightened complexities of the ecosystem which are out there. So Sadir and Praveen, if I was to go back to you with the same point which you were talking earlier, what's your view on breaking these information silos which today exist between the org and the whole ecosystem, which has its own set of complexities? So maybe Praveen, if you can take it first, and then Sadir, would love to hear your views on it.
Sure. Thanks, Avnish. And look, we spent a lot of time trying to solve for some of those challenges globally, right? So, look, I think the enterprises have moved on to the fact that they want to see this data because, like Sanjay and Sadir were mentioning, there's so much that you can do with that, right? But there are still complexities in bringing that data together, and here are some of them. One is that the tech maturity and consistency of your partners, like I was saying, is not necessarily at where you might be. And hence the data coming in, and you need to be able to provide a very flexible ecosystem for them to send the data. We actually get data from a lot of partners, and we work with Sadir on some of that, is we get partners who send it through APIs, EDIs, to all the way to emails, Excel sheets, attachments, what have you. Right? And having the ability to assimilate all of that and make sense of that and harmonize that data and connect it to the product masters and get that. So that is a big challenge that we have solved for. And enterprises are still looking to see how we can get that. The other thing is that the data standards are going to be different for different people. And technology now allows you to connect seamlessly. And there are these nice converters that you could put into the ecosystem that can allow machines to talk to each other very seamlessly. But more importantly, there is a governance aspect around this, which sometimes needs a managed service layer that you need to create, which is, what's the governance? The governance is about frequency. Someone sends you on a weekly basis, monthly basis, daily basis, hourly basis. You've got to normalize all of that, right? So there's a governance around that. The other is the quality. You'll be surprised at the number of times our partners come back to saying, you know what, oops, I sent you something wrong. I need to restate that number. And every one of those data inputs and the governance of opportunities go into someone like Sadir, who's making forward-looking decisions onto that, right? So there's this entire data governance that you need to bring. I think the biggest thing that brands like Adidas and many others are trying to solve for is also that what is the incentivization that they can give into the channels for them to share the data? What's in it for them, right? It's not just, you can go to some of your channel partners and, modern retailers have created ecosystems that you can get the reports that you want, download it, somebody sets it up for you. There's a data run that's happening, etc. But when you start breaking it down and what you're really looking for, there's much more data that's needed. So what's the incentives for the partners to share, whether it's on the supply side or on the demand side, is something else that organizations are grappling with to be able to create the right ecosystems. And many have solved it by saying, hey, if I could give you a sense of my demand, then that should be incentive enough for you to help me serve you better as a brand, or for you, the supplier, to have better predictability of your manufacturing processes to serve me better. So that's kind of a few complexities that enterprises have been grappling with and are solving for in real time. Avnish?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And Sadir, I mean, your views on it?
Yeah, I really, a lot of things what I really wanted to, speak about from as a customer of TradeEdge is what actually Praveen has, touch based, and I'll definitely, add to, those points. Before that, I just wanted to kind of set some context around, the understanding that we have within the organization. So there's a lot of data sitting inside the organization. We really have a lot of data. And, from my experience before we actually got in the data, which is sitting outside the organization, I used to actually think, okay, we have sales data, we do have inventory, we have, financial data, we have marketing data. I mean, like, wow, I mean, like it's a lot of data that, and we assume that we really are working within the organization with a lot of data, and it is, there, and we do have, the data that we need. But the real fact is that we have majority of the data sitting outside our organization. I mean, like, I'll give a very quick example. Like, for the very fact, like, until we actually engaged with the EdgeVerve's product, which is the TradeEdge, yeah, so we really had the inventory which was sitting within our organization. So our own organization's inventory, that was what we had. We started to bring in all our partners' inventory, yeah. And if we compare the inventory that is sitting with our partners, and we really realize like how many products in the market are still yet to be sold to our consumers, yeah. And why is basically this important? Because if we do not consider like our partner's inventory as our inventory, then a simple question like, how can we reduce our inventory? So if we pose this question, the simple answer to this on how we can reduce our inventory is like, the only answer that we can actually get is to sell our inventory to our partners. So why would the partner buy our inventory? If they start consuming their inventory and they reduce their inventory, that is when they would start buying our inventory, right? So it is extremely significant that we look at it, look at this overall, in a very holistic way, and it is very significant that we, analyze the partners, sales and also their inventory. Now, if we have to do all of this, the key ask here is like, how are we going to do it? I mean, like where Praveen touched a couple of points, which I really want to kind of like, also touch base here. So in order to manage this, there are complex systems. There are various different partners who are, sending data in various different ways that we have. So what we really need is a managed services in between, because as a business, for us, we would really not want to kind of sit and see how we can gather this data, how we can make sense of it, and so on and so forth. We really want to be at the receiver's end, where we sit and analyze the data and take business decisions. So the complexities around making sure that the data is coming on time, in frequency, on proper frequency. If we have agreed to get the data on a daily basis, yes, we do have to get it in quality, in the right quality that we actually expect it to be. So that's basically where a real support comes in from the TradeEdge, that the managed services part, and basically in completeness, so these are the three aspects that we actually are completely worry free, and what we actually basically tend to do is to analyze the data and make business decisions.
Well, thank you, Adi and Praveen. I mean, I did say that I will pick up the audience questions at the end, but then some of them are coming in, and one is very relevant to what Praveen, you and Sadhir were just talking about. So this question is, how do you solve data which is with your customers and suppliers to plan your demand and supply? What Sadhir, you were mentioning, but Praveen and Sadhir, if any one of you wants to take this first.
So I think I'll add a few points to it. As I mentioned, the key aspect is like to understand this completeness of your data. So as we always assume that we do have data and this is complete, but the fact of the matter is that your inventory, which is the inventory belonging to your company or your brand, is actually sitting across all your partners. And without bringing it together, the next set of actions, which are all part of your planning and also your production over to delivery, are all basically dependent on what is happening in the market. So if we are not able to bring this data, then the part of demand and supply is getting directly impacted. So this is what the thought process around how we look at our data has to be widened. And we really need to look at it as a holistic set of data, which is also sitting in the market with our consumers. So once we sold it, it's not the end of the story. There's a lot to it that we really need to look at it, in this way.
Sure, thank you. And Sanjay and Praveen, if any one of you want to add to that before we move to our next question.
I think Sadhir captured it extremely well, and that's where I was resonating that inventory is the system inventory. As Sadhir mentioned, it's not just what is in my warehouse or my factory, it's my partner. And if I can capture where the demand is, for example, in Sadhir's business, let's say a particular shoe of Adidas in a particular color or size is not available at the store where I want it, but he could transact my order from anywhere in the network as long as he's fulfilling it profitably. I think that's when inventory goes down, consumer offtake goes up, market share goes up, and my ability to replenish demand goes up.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay. All right, Sanjay, now that I have you, I have the next question for you. Which is, how can technology help organizations mitigate supply risks and build a resilient supply chain to provide exceptional customer experience?
See, in my personal view, when we talk about resilient supply chain or build resilience, there are three ways or a combination you can do it. You can have excess production capacity and or excess inventory, not very happy situations, or you can have early visibility and agile response, where Sadir started the conversation from. Let me share with you three examples where technology is doing that. So for example, for early visibility, today most of the leading retailers share with you their point of sales and inventory data on a daily basis. Why do CPG leaders struggle to scale it up? First thing, the data format of each retailer is different from each other. File sizes are huge. For example, when you get the daily sales information from Kroger, there are 16 files which come. Dollar General has 6, right? And their columns and things don't match. The second, each retailer has their own master data hierarchy, which is different from other retailer and different from an FMCG leader. By the time you harmonize it, it takes time. And then you discover what Sadir was saying, incomplete information. Something is missed, something is inaccurate. So by the time you recognize it, it is 7 to 8 days of latency, despite information being available. What we have managed to do is, on the TradeEdge ecosystem using the digital assets, we harmonize the master data in minutes. And I'm not exaggerating. Using the information that we have, today we will project, yesterday we would have projected what is likely to be the sales and inventory at store level that I should be receiving today. So once the data is harmonized, master data is harmonized, I compare, catch outliers and correct it. And as a result, to all our clients, on day 2, we are able to give the day 1 sales and inventory information. And I shared with you in my first answer some of the benefits that have been garnered. Second, and Praveen mentioned it in the beginning, our buying behavior, shopping behavior is changing. E-commerce is growing up. So every new channel brings its own opportunity and challenges. So if you look at one of the largest e-retailers in the world, they share with you a revolving 14-day national SKU level forecast, orders, likely orders. But when they place the orders, this is at their DC level, SKU level. National SKU is available, but DC SKU comes and you have only 48 hours to fulfill it. Now, if you miss it, you have order cuts, you have lost sales, and worst, you have penalties, and you can lose your buy box. We have used the same technology today using quite a few sources of data, which is my shipments, my order cuts, the ePOS data, and e-retailer data to predict what the orders would be. And to give you a small example, most of the time we find that our FMCG leading clients are at about 60-65% accuracy in terms of forecast accuracy for this retailer. We have managed to take it well over 85%. So penalties have dropped, fulfillment has gone. And the last one, where you were talking about resilience, you can do the same thing with supplier. I can have visibility to my supplier's inventory, and in case the business demands supplier inventory. So if there is a supply shock coming from one source, I know where to scale up my production or where to direct my suppliers stocks so that somebody else can scale up. So as a result, without indeed building too much of redundancy, you can build agility. That's one way I can see technology helping. Back to you.
Yeah, that's an interesting view, Sanjay. And you talked about these suppliers being a key element of the whole network, which is the other side for an organization, which is selling to and then they're procuring as well. Praveen, in TradeEdge, you talked about the network bringing everybody together. One, do you also, I did see that, yes, the suppliers were also a part of that whole network. So can you talk to us about this, how supplier risk moderation and supplier performance and any opportunities that you see in optimizing the procurement costs in this setup?
Sure, Avnish. See, supplier risk moderation, performance, and optimization or spend optimization, to my mind, are kind of related concepts. Why do I say that, right? See, the supplier performance data is limited today in most enterprises. There is not a lot that is maintained in a very structured manner. You don't necessarily have track and trace capabilities on how the supplier did in the last 2 rounds or 5 rounds of deliveries and what's the pedigree looking like and so on and so forth, right? So one is the lack of supplier performance data. The other is that a supplier's risk is not just driven by how that organization delivered to the brand, but it's also the external factors about their ecosystem risk, the supplier's financial risk, financial health, the geo risk that they might be. And this has particularly become acute when we started expanding our supply chain to global manufacturing, right? So I believe our ability to kind of get us handle on all of these elements will give you a better score around some sense what your supplier risk you might be sitting on, right? That's one. Having a holistic supplier strategy is what is top of mind for so many enterprises today, right? I think everyone's gone and revisited their long-term plans coming out of this event, and it's been a big wake-up call for most organizations. But it's also about saying that we've helped organizations consolidate, de-risk, manage their spend bases in a kind of comprehensive manner. Also looking at things like contract compliance, spend compliance, price variances, and so on and so forth, right? And we've helped organizations unlock anywhere from 3 to 5% of their spend base to be able to optimize and drive back some of those savings opportunities. I think when you look at it in total across risk moderation, performance, and optimization, really the importance is to try and create an ecosystem to collaborate. Progressive enterprises have got to the point that saying, you know what, here are my 100 preferred suppliers. I call them preferred suppliers because I was diverting most of my spend with them. But that's not the only reason why they should be preferred. You got to look at their pedigree, you look at their risk, financial performance, and so on and so forth. And you create this ecosystem of, let's say, 100 preferred suppliers in a particular region, geography, whatever that might be. And then you're trying to create an ecosystem again, a digital ecosystem that you can collaborate with them. Show them your demand insights, show them your demand sensing opportunities, and get them in a place where they get a better sense of what's coming down their pipe. And then try and get the reverse information and incentivize them to share what their risks are, what their supplier risks might be. And you try and do this in a tiered way, you can probably get to N-2 in about 12, 18 months. But it's going to be a bit of a long haul. But I really think that we need to kind of see performance, risk moderation, and optimization as kind of a combined opportunity. Anish?
Thank you, Praveen. I mean, you're kind of connecting to what Sanjay was also talking about, and it gives a good balance on both the supplier, the procurement aspects of it, and then selling to the market. There is an audience question out there, which I would want to pick right now, which goes into the technology aspect, Sanjay, which you talked about, and the whole network parts of TradeEdge, which Praveen, you talked about. The question is, could you also connect information of search engines to predict your demand? So is that something that you are seeing, or have you picked up from any of your conversations or any of your customers?
So let me take that, Avnish. Of course, yes. Search engines, web scraping, we are using that very much in today's world and integrating it with the sales information. Not only that we use the information from search engines, we are able to, using AI ML algorithms, we proactively search for the winning terms on the digital shelf and suggest to our clients, if you could incorporate this, you are likely to win. And I'll give you a live example. I won't reveal the client. By just adding the word waterproof to mascara, which was what was trending in the new search, the sales jumped up dramatically. Of course, I think in today's world, you cannot but integrate this unstructured information coming from search engines. Yes. Do I answer your question?
Yes, yes, you did. Thank you. Thank you. I hope it does that. There's an answer for our audience as well. So with that, Sadir, I will then bring you back into the conversation. And you were talking about, sensing the demand. So talk to us about this shift in localized demand patterns, especially while we are transitioning to a post-COVID world. So are you seeing that shift?
Definitely. I mean, like, if you look at the era of standardization is basically coming to an end here. So if you look at consumer communities are growing more diverse in ethnicity, wealth, lifestyle, values. And we also have smart retailers and consumer goods who started to customize their offering to local markets. So they're rolling out basically different types of stores. So we really can see that it's no more the regular stores that are out in the in the market. Yeah, there are different product lines. There are alternate approach to pricing, marketing, staffing, and customer service. So they are moving from standardization to localization. Yeah, and and if you look at, I would want to give you a couple of real life examples that we have, especially with our brand. And one of them basically is Maker's Lab of Adidas. Yeah. So what we do is basically we allow you to buy products from Adidas, and we also allow you to customize as per your needs. Yeah. It's a great example of design localization. Yeah. So another great example is the launch of Adidas jackets. Yeah. So which had a customizable circular patch. Yeah, to it. So it's a patch on the jackets where you can simply write your names, your initials, or or basically you can add any design. So localization, and also looking at the way how the consumers are looking at the products has drastically changed.
Yes, that's very interesting. Maybe I need one of those Adidas jackets with color patch and my name on it. And Praveen, on this whole volatility in the market today, how about the importance of the capabilities like order orchestration, and how does that address this volatility and this whole COVID situation we are in?
I think Sadir was saying it earlier, right? Saying move stock to where it's needed. Let's get inventory to chase demand, right? Look, I think we've spoken about the demand variability and uncertainties. We've really got to create ecosystems because the expectations of the online buyer are for kind of real-time gratification. They want to know what they bought, is it available? How soon can it be delivered? Where can I pick it up? I want to have my own choices of whether I pick it up from a store, curbside, doorstep, what have you, right? We've got to create those ecosystems that help us deliver to that. So really the first step to my mind in the order orchestration is actually to have good inventory visibility across your entire ecosystem in near real time, right? Because again, the entire online pitch is about saying, I don't want distractions. I don't want somebody to come back and say, you know what? Oh no, your color was not available, or your patch cannot be delivered, right? So having that great inventory visibility near real time is significantly important. And then the ability to kind of take the order, orchestrate it to the point from which it can be delivered the best is what the future ecosystems are driving today. We're helping some of our clients do this. And it's very interesting to saying, if you are a brand or a new brand who doesn't worry about, who's backed by capital and doesn't have to worry about costs or cost to serve, it's okay, deliver it from wherever, right? You're not worried about it. But most brands are very conscious about their cost to serve because so we're using AI algorithms today to help figure out the inventory visibility, see where the order has come from, and then be able to orchestrate the order in a way that these algorithms decide where they could be fulfilled from in a best possible way. And they keep learning, right? So if a particular order could not be fulfilled for X reason, then the next time that becomes a data input on how that algorithms keep learning. And the ability to do this and to deliver it and not just finish there, right? Then you need to keep the track and trace information, get the fulfillment going, and keep the messaging and conversation and engagement live with the consumer. We're trying to do this for some of our clients, and one of them particularly successful has been able to do this at scale, because look at the scale you're talking about. You're talking about hundreds of SKUs, thousands of stores, and millions of messages flashing back and forth to drive this entire orchestration. It's something that really requires scale to deliver on, not for the faint-hearted, I would say.
I agree. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I was when you were talking through this, I had a few pointers. I'll note it down. I'll come back to you, Praveen. Sanjay, for you talked about finding this balance and this equilibrium between the demand and supply, and how would a concept like value networks address challenges in balancing this demand and supply in your mind?
Sure, Avnish. See, Avnish, the way I think about it is, we always use the word supply chain, which a chain by definition is linear. One link going to the second goes to the third goes to the fourth. Whereas the point you are making, which is value network is one-to-many relationships. Let me give you an example. And this goes back to the slide which Praveen had towards the end of his opening presentation. I'll share with you two use cases where how we can create this equilibrium, and I'll build on the point which Sagar and Praveen made, which is let inventory chase the demand, go where it is required. So one of the leading food companies is wanting a network where they can bring their retail partners, suppliers, chicken farmers, cattle ranchers, restaurants, and logistic providers. And their logic is very simple. If a restaurant is out of some inventory and I can't fulfill it, can I fulfill it from a nearest Target or a Walmart or a Kroger? Or indeed, if they want organic and local, from a chicken farmer, and can you Uberize my delivery? So that's one. Number two, a restaurant is, for example, that particular geography is going under a pandemic lockdown. Now that I have the visibility, I can shift inventory to places which are open and within the perishability. This whole concept started with one of the very visionary CIOs of a leading beverages company, which is in the direct store distribution business. And they wanted a capability that give me visibility to the network. And the principle is, can I be able to execute and create alternate sources of supply? So for example, for retailer X at store Y in, let's say, I'm just making it up, city of New York, there are no stocks and the DC of the customer is low. Can I pick up another customer from that place and I can direct my DST driver to pick up excess inventory from one place and shift it to the other? And if I was to stretch this logic a little further, Praveen was talking about intelligent demand orchestration. That technically gives you the capability to split one order into many and be able to intelligently or fulfill it profitably from multiple locations.
Thank you, Sanjay. There is an audience question also. I just want to pick that, and I want to be cognizant of time here. So the question is, not long time ago, we used to talk about a lean supply chain. It feels that to build a resilient supply chain, we don't necessarily have to be lean. Is that correct? And is that the messaging that they are hearing? Sanjay, because you answered the last part about the value networks, why don't I bring you, and then maybe Sadir and Praveen, you can add.
I think that's an absolutely outstanding question, which every client of ours is grappling with, every single expert is answering. Part of the answer is yes. Yes, there is no getting away from the fact that resilience to some extent would require you to have ability to fulfill a sudden spike. But I think the point which I have heard some of the very visionary business leaders, including the chief operating officer of one of the largest FMCG companies, what they say is the whole aspect which we are saying, execute from the network. If you have a network on which you can execute, operate, not just information for information's sake, but ability to execute. And his logic was 80% of my sales are my mega brands. If I can get visibility this morning, what happened yesterday and where the inventories are, I can almost create an auto replenishment system. And that leaves me to manage the 20% of the business. And I will do towards reduction of complexity. And that's what I mentioned in the beginning. You can build excess capacity, you can put excess inventory, or you can optimize the two by gaining early visibility and agility to execute. But part of the answer is yes, no getting away from that.
Yeah, and Sadir and Praveen, do you want to add to that?
No, I think Sajay covered it very well. There is a trade-off, and that trade-off is being taken today by many enterprises who have, some of the safety stocks and so on and so forth that I was talking about. But every event leads to a pendulum shift, right? But I don't think we need to swing too far. We have the ability to deliver much better insights and bring a supply chain into the network and be more stable somewhere in the middle of that pendulum swing.
Okay, thank you. Sanjay mentioned about a concept, like he mentioned a term digital inventory, and Sadir, you were talking about bringing technology together. I'm jumping to another point that was another question I had for you, Sadir and Praveen. With this shift in demand from physical stores to online, how can technology help to address such disruption in consumer behavior? So Sadir, why don't we go with you first? Yeah. That's okay.
So I think I've touched this point a little bit in the very beginning of my first answer, which was without a doubt. I mean, like we really have to have hyper demand sensing for online businesses. Yeah. So I'm specifically using this word hyper, yeah, because it can dynamically change over the day anytime. So we can have a stock for some key products that we have, and that can change over the day at any given point in time. So hence hyper demand sensing is extremely essential for online businesses. But I think to manage this disruption in consumer behavior, we really need to build a strong omni-channel capability in our organization. So under the omni-channel capabilities, the most important one that I actually feel is to unify the inventory across tiers. Yeah. And at the same time, it's not just about unifying the inventory across tiers, but also fulfill it profitably. So these are the points which Praveen and Sanjay have been speaking. And, this is the most important point, which I think is needed at this given hour. Yeah. Where we can see, there's a complete disruption in consumer behavior. Without this in place, I think we are really going to kind of like have a lot of struggles as we see, the demand being shuffling around, from online to the physical stores and physical stores to online. The best solution that we can really, come up with is actually to have a unified inventory. So what does it actually, bring in? Yeah. With the unified inventory across tiers, you provide seamless availability, not just seamless availability of your products, but a larger range of products to the consumers. So which means we have solved one of the biggest problems of supply chain, which is the missing inventory part. Yeah. On the other hand, it is definitely also important that you look at your sales and also all the factors that are impacting your sales. That is absolutely critical. So technology, especially data and its engineering, plays a very crucial role here.
Thank you, Sadir. Praveen, do you want just to add? I know we're at the top of the hour, and I want to take one more audience question after this.
Sure. I mean, all I would add is that I think with the shift to online and the way it's happened now, we probably need to stop calling it disruption. I mean, it's a change in operating model, and as supply chain professionals, we have to deliver to that because there is business to be had there. but there's also a downside risk in the sense that there is substitution risk. Of course, strong brands like Adidas probably don't have to worry about it, but there are many other brands who have substitutes which could easily be, organization or buyers could flip to. And so what this has led to is that it's brought in a sense of urgency into the entire operations of that fulfillment. And the sense of urgency can only be fueled if you have the granular low latency data. So kind of, it seems to keep coming back, doesn't it, Amnish, to the fact that you really can't go too far unless you have really solid inventory, really solid data. And that can't come by if you aren't connected on a network, bringing all your parties together, whether it's your supply side or demand side. So I love the way it kind of is almost circular in how it comes back there.
Let me share.
Certainly, and I think,
Praveen, this is one of my clients saying, and it is embedded in my head. What they said was in inventory or costs are like cholesterol. There is a good cholesterol and there is a bad cholesterol. As long as you maintain the ratio, you are fine.
Certainly.
Good one.
Then, Praveen, to that point, bringing the data, and that's the one last audience question I can take. We are already 1 minute over. Is how can we successfully influence our clients to provide the data for demand sensing? And if there are any key advantages we can offer in terms of rewards or anything else that comes to your mind for data sharing. And it is an open question for you across the panel, Sadir, Praveen, and Sanjay, if any one of you wants to pick that up.
I think I will some practical examples as we actually do it.
Sure.
So I'll add a few points to it. See, first of all, the first and the foremost, it has to be a partnership with our partners out who are also selling our products. Yeah, so it has to be a very clear partnership in understanding what are the benefits that you actually would provide. As you look into this data. The first is basically you're looking at inventory and you are basically having certain plans in terms of analyzing the data and making sure that their inventory levels are profitable. Yeah. So they are basically moving out the stock which is not getting sold. We are able to replenish them the stock which are actually selling in the stores. So these are the key things that you really need to come when you look at the data. You need to get this alignment within your partners. Yeah. That looking at the data is not just the fact that we bring in the data and we do nothing out of it. Yeah, we really need to have this discussions, fine-tuned discussions on what are the key KPIs that we actually would target at. Are we trying to really reduce the inventory? Are we trying to look at specific category of the products where we really need to deliver? Yeah, and how do we actually analyze it? And the second aspect is that just to summarize is that we also do have certain forms of discounts that we provide to our consumers, to our partners, sorry. So basically the ones who are regularly sharing data as per the SLAs that we have defined, they do actually get certain forms of discounts. So this could also be one of the ways on how you can actually influence your partners to share the data.
And Amish, if I could Sadir mentioned a very important point. One can be a fiscal incentive. And the second is, how do I make it a win-win situation? And let me share an example. When we were starting the TradeEdge work in the distributor markets in Russia, one of the biggest benefits promised by our client to their distributors was, if you share with me 5 key metrics they wanted, volume and value sales, they asked for non-productive inventory, order cuts, key SKU distribution width, golden store distribution width, and they said, we will bring down your non-productive inventory. And that was without any fiscal incentive. So if we go back to where Walmart started with Retail Link, what did they say? I'm going to give you the information at the frequency you want, but now I will hold you accountable to make sure I'm not out of stock. And then they went on to OTIF penalties.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sanjay, and thank you, Sadir, for taking that question. And with that, I think we are at the close of this session. Thanks a lot, Praveen, Sanjay, and Sadir for all the insights and for answering all those questions from me and from the audience. And to the audience, we hope you enjoyed the session. Please feel free to reach us at edgeverve.com for any questions, or if you would like to have a one-on-one conversation. product experts. I do see there was another question around sharing case studies. So we have taken note of that. We would respond to that via email or any other questions that are there that came from the audience. And if you have any future questions, please feel free to email us and we will definitely reach back. Thank you again. Thank you, the audience and the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.